Philip, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks so much for taking the time to take this call.
Great.
We received an article for Fast Company that was written by Levi about Zinacare and your testing facilities. And we just thought that it would be great to chat to you and get some more information about the initiative, and also your opinion on um, the pandemic as a whole. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions based on the article. Yeah.
Okay.
So I know that you are the chief product officer at Zinke, and it sounds like a really interesting health technology startup. So could you maybe just tell us a bit about the company itself and what you guys do, and how you started the initiative of the testing for COVID-19?
Um, so basically, when we say we're an online health technology startup, Zinacare is an online, we have a digital platform where we would let consumers go online and buy various test kits. Um, these test kits are focused around STIs, so we test for sexually transmitted infections via PCR-based testing. So basically, that's what we were doing before COVID. We were focused a lot on um, the general STIs, the popular ones like gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia, um, mycoplasma, and hepatitis, and so on. So when obviously with most of these STIs, the way you would test for them is that you would order a test kit from us, which contained the swab. You would then collect a specimen using a swab wherever you need to, depending on the STI you're testing for. And then we would take that specimen, that swab, and we would run the test on the specimen. So obviously with COVID, the test for COVID is the very same thing. It's a swab that just has to go into your throat or your nose. We prefer nasal, but it has to go to your nose, and that's where we collect the specimen from. So basically, because every business was kind of under threat when COVID came around, and that everyone's business, one way or another, would go down, we then decided to utilize our resources to contribute to the fight against the pandemic in South Africa by setting up the drive-through stations. The reason why we went with that was, number one, our office in Sandton is an office that will fit 11 people, but it's in an accelerator program. So there's other startups within the office space, and then we just have our dedicated office in the corner. So we couldn't really be testing people from that office. So what we realized that we'd have to do is we'd have to set up a mobile testing station, for example, and do the test from there.
Yeah.
So the we experimented and we worked around a lot of different things, and the end solution was what we have now: a mobile drive-through. We like to set them up in shopping centers, um, but basically go from there. So we were in a very unique position to do that because obviously we were we were already doing these type of tests.
Yeah.
So now it's just to focus on COVID. Temporarily, then we took down our digital platform because we paused all other businesses or other business that we do, like our other services, and we focused. We're just super focused on COVID. However, in the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to start rolling out our older services and include a few new interesting services within the sexual health space.
Okay. That sounds, it's quite an innovative approach. But can you tell me a bit more about the drive-through clinics? So I know you said you have a mobile testing unit. How many of these mobile testing units do you have currently, and where are they located? Are you in different cities around South Africa? Are you in Johannesburg or Cape Town? And then also, um, one of the conditions for the testing? For example, do people need a referral from a doctor? And how are the tests conducted?
Yeah, so basically, when we started out, we had our first site, which is at Kalani Corner.
Okay.
In Kalani Corner Shopping Center in Midrand.
Okay.
That was our first site. That's where we started, and it's currently our busiest site. So, averaging about 100 tests a day that we do from there. Now, obviously, averaging 100 tests a day. I'll tell you now, when we started, we used to do about 3 tests a day. And all of this has been in the space of 4 months. So it's been really interesting. Our second site, which we set up, was at in Pretoria, in Silver Lakes, at a shopping center called Hazel Square Shopping Center. However, from there we then we then set up another one in Sandton at Benmore Center. It's a small shopping center. Well, not small, it's a shopping center there in Benmore in the Portmore area, called Benmore Shopping Center. And then from there we set up in Bryanston. So in Bryanston we went to the Post House in Bryanston, and we set up there. However, we've now stopped in Pretoria at Silver Lakes at Hazeldean Square Shopping Center, and we've also stopped at Bryanston. And the main reason for that was that we realized that it's not just about setting up sites everywhere, but it's about picking the areas where there's greatest demand for this. Yeah. So that and you know, that's what I mean. Benmore will average about 40 tests a day, and Kalami on a good day will average 100 tests, right? So, and then the others weren't like doing as well, so we wanted to focus our energies and have more nurses on the sites that have a greater demand, and have less nurses because we're trying to do too many things at once.
Yeah.
So now that's where we are. And in terms of scaling, I mean, Zinacare recently announced that they've closed their testing service. So for that reason, we might add 1 or 2 others and try to spread them out around the Gauteng area. But at the moment there hasn't been any kind of plans of going outside Gauteng. Okay.
And then with regards to the testing process, how is that done?
So our process is you get there, and the first thing is you get sanitized and given gloves, because you're going to touch our boards and you're going to touch our painting machines. So we don't want anyone contaminating our stuff, or we don't want our stuff contaminating any patients. So you get sanitized first, just cleaned up, and then the screening begins. Screening now really is just finding out why you want to test, having a look at your doctor's referral, or finding out if you meet any other testing criteria, which would be having been in touch with a positive COVID-19 case. And then basically then we get you tested. So when you start the testing, we give you some forms to fill in. So all of our tests are done by AMPAC laboratories. So all of our forms are filled in for AMPAC, and then we fill in a government form called a patient under investigation, a form where you basically put people that you've been in touch with or in contact with in the last 2 weeks. And once you fill in the form, then you make a payment. So we charge 1,150 for the test.
Okay.
If you're using your own doctor, and then we charge 1,650 if you use our doctor. And our doctor, our underwriting doctor, is Dr. Yakovides from Midrand Medical Center. So then that's our process, and you make a payment, and then you proceed from the screening station. You move forward to the testing station, where a qualified nurse will collect a specimen from the nose, preferably. So we do nasal, that's what the lab prefers.
Mm-hmm.
And in special circumstances, we can do the throats. And then once you've collected your specimen, AMPAC Laboratory sends the collection guys, and they come and pick up specimens from all of our sites every hour.
Okay.
And basically, it goes to the lab, gets processed there, and the test results are out it's now between 48 and 96 hours. the good days are behind us where it used to be 24 hours because the lab was just so busy. There's so many tests happening. But it looks like they're coming back again with the good turnaround time. We are still telling people 48 to 96 hours, but a lot of our results are coming within 48 hours.
And in the article, they mention that there are many imbalances in the overall healthcare system, and there are lots of discrepancies between the public and the private sector when it comes to the time in which it takes to deliver test results. And do you have any comment on this? What are some of the discrepancies and the imbalances that you have noticed between the public and the private sector with regards to COVID-19?
So obviously working with Impact and ourselves being a small medium enterprise, we are in the private sector. So obviously in the private sector, the guys doing this type of stuff can move much quicker. So turnaround time of results is much faster. And in the public sector, obviously then it's free. So private sector, you always pay. If you go public and you test at the government testing facilities, it's free. So I think I mentioned in the article is that you can't really criticize the public sector or the government for any downfall or any negative in terms of the testing processes because they are free. So a whole lot more people will come and test. So then the biggest criticism really to them is that their turnaround time is really slow. We know people that have come to us and said, hey, I tested last month, and I still don't have my results. So I think that's just the main thing. I mean, look, testing, it's as simple as collecting a specimen and getting it off to the lab, but obviously the real work is done in the lab, turning around the results in good time so that the person who's tested doesn't go around infecting other people. They get to know their status much quicker, they get a consultation much quicker, they can begin their isolation and their recovery process because now they're aware of their status. So that's just a criticism of the government's one, but I understand though, because it's so busy. We get a lot of people going to our various sites and asking, is it free? And it's very frustrating because you're not supposed to be testing. Fine, a lot of people don't have symptoms, but you're not supposed to be testing if you just want to do it because it's free, because that's what's causing the delay.
Yeah.
You should really do this if you've seen a medical professional, a doctor, and the doctor says, I think you should go and do a COVID test. Because we get people going for heart surgeries, for this and that, and these are real medical issues that need to be prioritized. And they have to wait 48 hours now for their results because there's backlogs, caused by people who go and test without a doctor's referral or this and that. So, the only really criticism that anyone can have for government is that it's a really slow turnaround time, but again, it's free. And the testing criteria, the criteria doesn't exist. Anyone can just go and test. So you understand why they have a backlog. Private sector, the guys move much quicker because tests are expensive. And so I suppose one thing I could say, it would be great though, if, government the private sector is doing way better at testing the government's public testing facilities. It would be way better, something that I've observed, if government kind of subsidize this.
Yes.
Because you don't judge a book by its cover. But I've seen guys walk up there that you would never think they're going to come and fork out 1,150 for a COVID test, especially when they don't know if they're sick or not. And, you have conversation with them and they're like, damn, this is really taking me out of pocket. But my employer says I have to do it, or my doctor says I have to, or I've got this cough, so I'm not really sure if it's flu season, normal flu, or if it's COVID. And they kind of have to pay that much money. And it would be really nice if the government subsidized it for everyone, to benefit people who can't really afford it. Yeah, because you also see people coming and getting a doctor's referral, and they say, I'm getting checked, but then when they find out the price, they're like, okay, no.
Yes.
And
that
person,
obviously also contributes to a lot of cases going undetected because people can't afford the tests.
Yes, I mean, the big contribution of undetected cases is backlog in government facilities, and then delayed people knowing the status.
Yeah.
Backlog in some private institutions, letting people know the status, and then it's obviously then the price barrier. Not everyone can pay 1,150,
Yes.
even if they're going to get a refund. Because with us, you still get a refund of 850 from the medical aid, but not everyone can afford to just party that money and wait for the refund as well. So it's a really interesting thing.
And then obviously limited resources, as well as the social economic inequality that we have, are a unique set of challenges that South Africa faces when it comes to dealing with the virus. But are there any other challenges specifically that South Africa faces with the virus that other countries might not?
None that I'm aware of. I think we're doing really well.
Yeah.
We do have crazy number of cases, but that's, even as in our company, as a house company that's working in COVID, we always try to tell employees and nurses that, guys, we test you every week, and we give you all these care packages with all these vitamins and this and that. But like once you leave and once you're off site and we can't see you, we can't really control what you do at home, but anything that you do at home is really going to affect what you could bring back into the workplace. And I think that's just the biggest thing in South Africa. Look, we've seen we get booked a lot by companies, by the way, to go and do a corporate service.
Mm-hmm.
So we call that an occupational health and safety package, where we go and we test some companies. We test hundreds of employees at a time at certain companies. And, these companies are, when we get there, I've seen facilities where there's sanitizers everywhere at that company. And, you speak to the guys who are running the place, and they're also doing care packages. They're doing what they can. But then when the results come out, so many people in that company are positive. And it just goes back to we can't control what people are doing when they're no longer at work. But I don't think there's any issue that South Africa is having that other countries, especially countries, African countries or whatever, but anyway, we're having that they're not having. We're doing really well. Our companies are being responsible. Our companies are testing their employees. People are taking this really seriously. But then the hard work gets put to waste when they are the irresponsible behavior. I think you even saw the situation in Italy. That was happening. They were doing all they can before they did that extreme shutdown or lockdown of the whole country. But people were still going out and people were still doing this and that. And then that just really downplays all your efforts. So I'm really proud to be part of the people in the health space that are working on COVID in South Africa. So that goes to public and private sector. That includes a lab, like laboratories and private companies doing this. I'm really proud because people have really come together and they're really doing a lot and they're really pushing. But obviously the people that don't take COVID seriously, they kind of downplay all those efforts.
Definitely. And I know you said it's hard to criticize the government, but just lastly, when it comes to the response that the country has taken to fight the pandemic, is there anything that you would change or do differently, or something that you would like to implement, that you would have implemented in helping to flatten the curve in South Africa?
Yeah, look, one thing we do a lot is, okay, so I guess in that situation, we look at what other countries do. And then we look at what are we doing and what could we be doing better and whatnot. So, which is your question. It's hard it's really difficult to kind of judge. And here's why. This is my 2 cents anyway. We in terms of Africa, right, and in a third world economy, there's really not much going on. Like I've spoken to guys, friends that are running startups in Kenya, running startups in Ghana and Nigeria, and you try to find what are they doing, what efforts are their governments putting in place for COVID. I've actually very funny. I've got a cousin right now. She's still stuck in Nigeria with her fiance, right? And when I look at like their Instagram stories and whatever, it's still very social there, and they're still going out. My point is, I'm going to go somewhere where you can't criticize the government because of the backlog, because it's free. We are a third world economy. I would say we shouldn't be at level 3 with the number of cases that we have. you can't keep watering down restrictions when the cases are going up. But then again, you look at the fact that our economy can't stand being on a strict lockdown. Do you get what I'm saying? And I guess I'm also just not always very critical by nature, so I can't really fault them. I think we're trying. We've done what we can. Again, I'm going to go back to that. There's I guess one big thing is support the companies that are actually doing COVID-19 prevention solutions or fighting COVID-19. I think support them, because you'd be surprised. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but obviously FNB have really supported us financially and or other ways. But it's not like they have a specific COVID-19 fund. They just supported us because we associated with them through a program that we are in, which is that FNB Social Impact Lab, right? So we're a social impact company, and they supported us that way. There's not a lot of support really for companies with COVID-19 responses. I know, because we've applied for so many, and I think with the work we've done, it's like there should be more support. Yeah, so that's the only criticism I'd have. Governments have got all these budgets that they've put out, but how much, what has gone to COVID-19 solutions? I'm not aware of too much.
Yes.
For the amount of money that's been mentioned, right?
So
but
maybe
in terms of
more transparency.
Pardon?
Maybe perhaps more transparency between the government and the public about the COVID-19 funding.
Exactly, 100%. That's the biggest thing actually that I'd say, Because in terms of being on level 3 and the cases going up and we're still watering down restrictions, I really get it, I understand it. We are a third world economy. We can't really put our whole economy on the freeze forever. So there's some sacrifices there. But in terms of the government doing tests and backlog, I get it. But what are you guys doing to keep companies who are actually fighting this and providing solutions? Because there hasn't been much transparency around that. At least to my limited knowledge, there hasn't really. And there's not much support, because going back to your question, where are we now and what's our type of scale or our presence? We can't really think of doing this anywhere else, because one, we have limited resources. As a company that's in the front lines, on the ground, fighting this and getting results out in a very quick time frame, we can't go and set up and pay it in, because what we're doing here is it's not as easy. We're dealing with a lot of customers. People want invoices. People want their tests. You've got to train nurses and do that. But if you've got support, we could probably scale this out much easier. And then looking at other people doing very impactful COVID-19 work that I know personally, what support have they got? Because all of this is just coming from ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a big thing, actually, just thinking about it without having planned it before. It's just that, what support is really going to companies that are having an impact on COVID.
Well, I guess as we move into the peak, we'll have to see how things transform and how companies are showing their support as the virus gets more serious. But thanks so much, Philip, for taking this call. It was really informative.
My pleasure.
And I'm sure our readers will be interested to hear what you have to say as well. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the call and chatting to us as well. I look forward to seeing it in print.
Yes, definitely. I will send it to you once it's out.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.